let's see if we can teach you a little bit about layers quickly. To demonstrate, I just picked a random picture that I took the other day, and I'm going to use an action so the layers are already made. I don't have to make the layers, just so I can explain to you a little bit about layers. So Colorville has one called Splendor that I would like for this photo. So I just click on it and hit run, and it's going to make all the layers for me. I can make these myself, but this is quicker to teach you what it is. Layers are basically edits laid on top of each other, sort of like a filter for your camera. So if I want to make it brighter, I change a setting on my camera to get more light. If I want to add a tone, I add a filter. I kind of see it as a photo with lots of layers of vellum on top, and each piece of vellum has a different style or color or edit, and each piece of vellum also has the parts I don't want that edit to show on cut out, and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, it made this whole entire set called Splendor. This is with it on, that's with it off. With it off, this is straight out of the camera. It's kind of dark. You would think that it was a cloudy day, and it was, but I kind of want to go for a nice summer day. With it on, it brightens it up. I like almost every one of the layers that it made. There's a couple things I'd like to change. To see what you like and what you don't like, you can turn each layer on and off, sort of like, okay, I have a photo laying down and I want a red tint to it, so I lay a piece of red vellum over top of it, and now I have a red tint. But I don't like that red tint on the grass, so I cut that piece away so only the green shows through. Each one I can turn on and off and see what I like and what I don't like. If there's something I don't like, say here, this grass down here, I don't like it that well. I would prefer, if you see when I turn off the cream tone, you see how it's darkened up. But I like what it does to the trees. So what I do is I go over to the vector mask, which is this white area. White means that the entire level, or I'm sorry, layer is shown, meaning I have that picture and the entire cream colored vellum is laying on top. Sort of like on wedding invitations, you get the clear matte vellum that goes over top to make it look kind of matte, hazy. So I like it in spots and I don't like it in others. So I'm going to go over to this editing part, which is called a vector mask. I'm going to click on the white area. I'm going to change my brush to black because I'm going to cut out parts. If you watch as I brush the black onto the grass, you can see that now the grass area does not have that edit on it. Also up here, I kind of don't like all of this being so bright because it is kind of in the shadows. So just different places I can take out the cream colored brightening. That looks good, I guess. So then the next piece of vellum, or the next edit, is the spring tone. If I turn it off and then back on, you can tell there's no difference. So I can leave that off because it'll just get away from it. The sunlight layer, again, layer is another edit put on top. If I turn it off, you can see we go back to the dark photo. I kind of like what the grass down here at the bottom looks like, but I kind of want these trees to be brightened like that. So again, I'm going to click on my vector mask, make sure I have the black brush. I'm going to get rid of that sunlight on the grass. It had enough sunlight as it was. And I'm also going to try to take off a little bit on these branches too. Or not branches, but the foliage. Just enough to where it still looks like a not such a flat picture is what I'm saying. Give it a little depth by darkening up some spots. Because you're not going to have sun under the tree. I'm also going to take it off the bench a little bit. The next layer is to darken shadows. And I kind of like the darkened shadows because it gives it depth. So this layer would be a very light black piece of vellum that you would lay over top of your photo to give it a feel of more depth. The output matte is exactly that. It makes a matte finish. Turning off and on doesn't seem to do anything. If I click on here, you'll see the opacity is at 100 on it, and it's not doing anything turning it off. So I'm just going to leave it off. Bring out details is next. If you see now, this is the opacity is 28. If I turn it off, you can see that it makes it just a little brighter, which also makes it kind of flat. If you find something you like but you just want a little more of it, change the opacity of that layer. Means how dark the layer is or how much of that edit is showing. If I take it up to 100%, that's quite a bit. But if I turn it off, you can see the difference. Kind of brings out the details, as it said, which is contrast. I think that's good. You can also go in here and you can see what that adjustment is. So this adjustment layer is brightness and contrast. They name the layers things that tells you what you're doing. So if the brightness and contrast is what you've played with to make this layer, to bring out your detail, you're just going to name it bring out detail so you remember. I can also go in here and bring up the contrast, bring down the brightness. This is after the layer's made. So you always have a way to do exactly what you want. Now, when you make a layer, say this layer adjustment layer for brightness and contrast was made, and you put it in here and all of it's showing, but you decide later you don't want that much. When you bring it up, it's going to say everything's at 0. That's so if you make an adjustment and you forget where the level was, you haven't messed everything up. You actually just go back to 0. The next one's Sunkiss, which if you go in, you see that's also brightness and contrast. So it's a different brightness and contrast level. If I turn it off, you see the photo gets darker. I kind of like that in spots and not in others, so I'm going to turn it on and I'm going to make a little bit of an adjustment. I liked these branches a little darker, so I'm just going to turn it off of those areas. The Sweet Summertime layer, I'm seeing a little bit of difference. If you click on it, you'll see that it's a filter, like a peachy filter. I can make the density more and see if that gives me a better outcome, or I can take it down less. So it's just a filter like on your camera, and I like it like that. This is the group, so when it's closed, all you see is that, off and on. Now, if you decide, hey, I like this tree the way it looks here, but everything else I like, you can actually go into the vector mask on the entire group and take it off of this tree, or just areas that you want to darken up or change back to the original. So here, I'll take off a few little bright spots that make it look just a little too bright over there. Take it off of the bench area. And let's take it off the grass too. So now we have, within this group, all of these different layers. Layers are just adjustments. And when we're done with finishing that group, we can right click and flatten the image. Excuse me. And now your picture is just as you want it and just as the photo. Like melting all of the edits onto the photo. This takes longer when I'm recording to flatten the image, but it's much quicker when I'm not recording. So this photo looks kind of good. There's different things I can show you to play around with. It's not like I'm going to make this a great photo. But let's go ahead and make another layer. This is make a layer. And let's call this layer sun. And I have a brush that is sun flares, which I did use in other photos. There's actually 4 brushes. And I'm going to go for this one. And I'm going to keep about that size. I'm going to take the opacity down to about 53%. And I'm going to make the color a creamy color. Let's try that. And then because I think the sun would be coming through here or up here if the sun was shining that day, I'm just going to click in and add the sunshine. Now, that kind of looks a little too much, so I'm going to delete those. And I'm going to bring, well, let me just do it again. Let's say it looks like it's too much, but we don't want to delete and go back and do again. What we can do is we can actually go to this layer and bring down the opacity here. So there, we've got a little bit of sunshine coming through there. But let's say we don't want it to hit all of those branches. We make our vector mask like before. We're going to make it in white so everything's shown so we can take it off just what we want. We're going to bring our brush back to just a normal little brush. Okay, and we've got a black brush. I don't want it, let's just say I don't want the sun on these branches. Make sure your opacity is back up to 100%. Okay, so the sun's coming through, but I don't want it to touch this branch or this foliage. So I'm just taking it off what I don't want it to touch. Because if the sun's coming from behind this, obviously it's not going to be lit up. So there. I'm not the greatest when it comes to visual effects, but that shows you a little bit about how. Now, because I see another area I'd like to put some sun, I'm going to click back over on the layer. This side here's the layer, this is the mask. For the layer, I'm going to bring this back down to about 40, 45. I'm going to change back to my sunny, and I'm going to go back to my sun brush. And I want right in that corner. And because I want it just a little brighter, there. And then I can actually go back and take it off of the other areas like I did before, to make it look a little more realistic. Make sure I have the black brush, make sure I'm clicked on the vector mask, and let's just take it off of here. I just click and make a few little spots to where it looks more natural. Let's go back a little bit. So I just want to take it off of the areas that may not be brightly lit if the sun was shining through there. Okay. Let's go back and do another one. I'm going to use this sun. I'm going to bring it down to a little bit smaller than what we had before. Let's go back to our creamy tone and put one right here. Okay. So now we have sunshine. We can also use this to make the hazy corners if we want. So now we have a layer that we actually created, and we can take it up or down. We don't want it up there, obviously. We want it subtle, but we want to show sun. There we go. And then we can merge that down, and we have that again. So now we just have one layer, which is the original photo.